Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Insight Fantasy Sports AFL podcast for this Tuesday night. And you might have noticed something just a little bit different. And we're going solo today. The newest members of the AFL community are going to take over the show. So Horse has given us the reins for the evening. So with me, and no one better to be joining me for my first hosting gig than the numbers man himself. Flanders, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm looking forward to this. I have no idea about buttons and different things we have to press, and I think we've even got the wrong intro up, and we didn't have music and all that, but we're just going to get into it and talk about footy. Why not?
Mate, the best thing we do on this podcast is talk, so they got the right guys for that.
Absolutely. So we've been given strict instructions. We've been told, look, you got to stick within an hour. And I said to Horse, yeah, sure we do. But we haven't got any instructions. Horse has given us free rein. Shout out to the great man who is this week out commentating for the under-16s national championships, which are being held in Bendigo. So he's seeing some good young basketballers ply their trade and having some fun commentating there. Not only just commentating those games, but also giving some different sort of exposure to the Insight brand. So that's really cool, and I hope he's having a great time. But we thought, with him away, let's continue on. We don't need him, even though he's done 96 streams or something this year. He keeps telling us. Let's go with one on our own. How does that sound?
That sounds like a plan. He was telling me earlier on the phone. He said there was under 16s kid rocks up. He's 15, 6'8", and windmill dunking on a full height rim. Yeah, this is outrageous, these kids nowadays. But that's an NBA podcast discussion. Let's kick on with the AFL stuff.
Let's do it, mate. So we'll get into it. Tonight's going to be about buy, hold, sell. In the main, we're going to talk a lot about who should people be thinking about. Most people are down to either one trade, no trades, or two or three left and thinking, do I burn one? What do I do with some of these players? So we're going to give them some advice. We're going to talk about some of the blokes they should be thinking about bringing in. Some we recommend that they should just hold fire and not get rid of. And then some others that you might sell if you want to be a bit aggressive, because many people are just sitting on their hands right now. So there'll be some options to maybe make some ground up on the competition. So we thought it would be good to talk about those things. And what better place to start than probably the number one topic this week for many super coaches, which is about what do we do if you've got Jai Caldwell? And are you an owner, Broads?
No, I avoided that one. But it wasn't an easy avoid. I still think you guys made just over $100,000 as owners, so it's not a bad pickup at all by any means.
Nah, he was brilliant. I bought him, and this is where those micro decisions in SuperCoach really do make or break you a little bit. Like I bought him in round, I think it was 12 or 13, whatever that. Maybe the first week of the buys had just gone, so it might have been round 13. And I was faced with the decision. Oh no, it was round 12 because I was faced with the decision of Tom Stewart or Jai Caldwell. I was going Tom Stewart the whole week, and then we heard those rumours that maybe he won't be going to WA. We didn't know if he was going to be playing. I thought, no, I don't want to borrow that. So I then pulled the trigger on Caldwell, which I was wrapped with. He's done a brilliant job for 4 or 5 weeks for me. Like you said, made $100,000. He was scoring like a primo, and now syndesmosis, Scans and Essendon don't go together this year, and he's out for the year, so we have to move him on. But that's just one of those things. Them's the breaks. It's the way it goes.
Exactly.
So I thought we'll talk a little bit, Broads, about, well, what do we do in this scenario? And I've put together 3 columns here for everyone at home. Those who are like me, I'm in the no cash column. I think I've got about $6,000 in the bank, so I can't afford anyone. I can't even afford Libba. He was, I think, 7,000 more than I've got, so I'm in trouble there. And then if you've got $50,000 in the bank, what are some viable targets? And then if you've got $100,000 in the bank, what are some targets? So let's talk through a few. First of all, the no cashes, bro. So having a look at this list, and those who are listening on audio will just read them out first, and then maybe you give us a rundown of a couple that you love. So if you haven't got any cash, probably the best targets this week are Zach Merritt, Nick Martin, Lloyd Meek, Brian Myers, Nick Blakey, Miles Bergman, Jezza Cameron, Lockie Whitfield, our man Lockie Whitfield, and Jack McRae. Out of those, who are the ones that you would recommend people like me start to narrow the field down to?
I'd love if everyone picked up Zach Merritt, so that at least if you're riding the pain that I have of him, it makes it a little less painful because everybody owns him. But I reckon the options there are going to be Jack McRae has a wonderful run home for St Kilda midfielders. So I reckon that's a wonderful pickup for those that got off him earlier on in the year to jump back on. He's nice, good price there, nice, easy swap over. And if you're putting him in the midfield as well, you're getting the DPP flexibility of forward mid, which not a lot of people have. I know I don't have any forward cover primo wise, so I do have to just cover with a rook or do a trade if somebody gets a 1 weeker.
Yeah.
Whitfield is just elite. He should never be at the price that he's at. If it wasn't for bad luck, he wouldn't be anywhere near this price. So I'd be just as keen to jump on him. They're probably the two big names that stand out to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Like people might be sitting there worried about someone like Whitfield and should we go there? He's just come off his concussion and should be back this week. We think he was on all the news broadcasts today saying he's coming back, and it was really good insight actually listening to him and why he sat out last week. And he said he's when he was younger in his career he had some head knocks and just played on. He didn't know any different, didn't care. But this time around, he was fine at home. But then when he went to do some training, he was having just a few like little spatial awareness kind of issues and feeling not quite 100% right. So they took the precaution of not playing last week, not flying over to WA, and he feels good now. So probably a really good story as well, with concussion being so prevalent at the moment, just of what the difference in the philosophy of players can be these days versus back when maybe he started playing whenever that was, and he just would have said, oh, well, it's a head knock, who cares? Let's get on with it.
Yeah, for sure. The other one, obviously Zach Merritt stands out quite a fair bit to me as well.
Let's talk about Zach, because I traded him about 4 weeks ago. And the primary reasons that I had then, some of the information and data has changed, but some remains the same. So I was telling everyone in the community there's about 3 or 4 reasons I was getting off Zach. One was he was being played all over the place. He was sort of not playing that pure centre bounce mid anymore, which that piece of data may have shifted now that you've got Parrish and Caldwell out of the team. He probably stays the primary mid now. But the thing that hasn't changed, the two things that haven't changed, he'll still cop tags, and he's got a few coming. And the fixture ahead is a little bit ugly for probably him and the taggers that present themselves over the next few weeks. So are you still big on bringing Merritt in, or would you avoid those tags? What are you thinking?
I don't think he can be tagged out of games, yes, but he's got Jordan, he's got potentially a windy tag. Carlton aren't known to be tagging at the moment. Chincotta still exists, but he's not going every week to somebody. So it's sort of a 50-50 call. So he's probably got 2.5 tags for the back end of the year. But he does have Richmond, so you can put up a big score this week for you as well. And I think ever prevalent this year is the ceiling score is what's bringing people up. I pulled a 24-10 this week by having ceiling scores. Whereas if I didn't, most other guys that had similar teams were in the 23s or high 22s. So it made a massive difference to my week and my year. So
I think that's a massive shout out. Like, as much as we've been a little bit critical of midfielders in particular and getting sort of 60s and 70s, including blokes like Bonds, who historically have been foolproof, they've had some down games. When you look at the big scorers each week, and we both got pretty similar last week, we had 24.06 and 24.10. The reason we got them wasn't because our team necessarily is any better than anyone else, but we had the high scorers. We had the NAS 150. We had a few of those kind of blokes getting in those scores. And so Zach Merritt absolutely can do that for any given week. Now, he's not going to do it all the time. Averages say he won't, and he will probably cop a tag, especially against maybe Sydney in particular, which the one worry for me, if you are buying into Zach Merritt, you need to be aware of this. If you are a league player, round 21 being first week of the finals, if you're in an elimination final, you have to be comfortable that Zach Merritt has Sydney Swans. And Sydney Swans will tag him. There is no question about that. And so as long as you're comfortable with that scenario, then go for it. I think the attraction for me and why he's even in my thoughts again is because I'm in the bottom half of 3 of my 4 cash leagues, bottom half of the 8. So I'm in the 8, but I'm hanging on kind of thing, and they're pretty tight contests. The one ceiling score I get this week might be the difference between me making the 8 and not making the 8 if I can get over the line. So there is a bit of temptation there to not worry about round 21 and go for the bloke who might get a ceiling score this week. And each team's their own. I think you need to weigh that up. Where are you sitting on your ladder? Do you have the ability to make the 8? Are you comfortable? And if you do, maybe you're looking a little bit more for round 21 to 24 fixture, opposed to round 18 to 20, which is where others might be looking if they're trying to fight for positions in the 8.
For sure.
A couple of others in that list. I'm really, really tempted by Nick Blakey and Miles Bergman. Those two really do interest me. I know Kizza, our Punters Club president, has had Miles Bergman for a while. And besides the one game against Geelong where he sort of was thrown around a bit and went back, and the other game I think he was sick, he's been a primo scorer. So he does interest me a bit. And Nick Blakey as a bit of a pod interests me a lot as well. I didn't think he played that well on the weekend, but still got near 100. So the games where he does play well, he's got some big spikes in him too. So there's some options for you there if you've got no cash. My pick of that list is similar to yours though. But I've already got him, so he's not who I'll be bringing in. Jack McRae. If I didn't have him, he would be my one on this list that I would go. Love the DPP, love the fixture, love the centre bounce mid. Not going to get tagged very often, you wouldn't have thought. So I think he'd be the one if you got no cash.
The other smoky is Lloyd Meek. He's a ruckman that has scored historically pretty well, and rucks don't get tagged. Unless you play Riley O'Brien, who did almost a tag on Maxi Gawn on the weekend, which was just elite to watch. I'll give him that. So, yeah, it's Lloyd Meek is someone that you could definitely consider for sure as well.
Yeah,
if you want to run that.
I agree. Lloyd Meek does have a bit of a messy fixture. I think he has Riley O'Brien in one of the first 2 weeks of the finals from memory. But yeah, he is someone, like you said, that is cheap too. I think it's 409,000 or something like that. So
506.
506. Sorry, low fives, not low fours. And then the one, have you got the kahunas to go Jezza Cameron? That's the real question. You know, like the key forwards are a no-no in SuperCoach. We're all probably feeling a little scarred from bringing in Sam Darcy and him getting a 70 and then an 80 or whatever he got over the last 2 weeks. And I've sort of made it my first rule to talk about when we do our review pod about no key forwards. I don't care who they are. So I don't think I could go Jezza, but gee, it's a fixture you could chase for sure if you really wanted to.
If there's one thing I would say, if you are playing for leagues, you're a game ahead at the top, 2 games ahead at the top, pick up Jeremy Cameron for only one reason only. He has Richmond round 24. That is the only reason why. No, do not buy for any other reason other than if he is in the chase for a Coleman, or he can put a stupid lead on somebody at the back end of the year and he's playing Richmond. I wouldn't expect him to kick 4 goals 5. I would expect him to kick 9 goals 0 and put 150 on somebody's head.
Yeah. And he just did it this week, right? 133, and I think he kicked, was it 5 behinds or 4 behinds in that score? So could have been even bigger. So we won't talk about all the blokes on the 2 other columns because most of these we've been talking about for months now. People know who they are. Just a question to you, Broads, without notice, and we haven't prepared this. Why are some of them in red, do you reckon?
Because I was looking at all this today, prepping for this a bit. They are guys with high break-evens. If you can hold a week, hold a week.
Yeah. Massive break-evens, most of these guys. And so this is where the other little strategy might come in. If you're like me, because I'm sitting there with $6,000 in the bank and Jai Caldwell, I'm probably comfortable to pick out of that no cash list. So I might go this week. But if you're not really comfortable with any of those names you see on the left-hand column there, and you say, I don't really like any of them, or I've already got the ones that I like anyway, and you really think you would prefer the blokes in the next 2 columns, you could hold this week and see the price drops. In particular, someone like Ed Richards is a really interesting one if you really like Ed Richards, because the Bulldogs play before Essendon play. So you could watch their game, see what he does in terms of a score against his break even, the calcs will come out. Well, you'll have plenty of people on Twitter saying this is what his price is going to be next week. And if you've got, it might not cost you 50 grand then to get to Ed Richards. It might cost you 20 grand. So you might say then I'm just going to put Caldwell on the bench this week, play whoever my 23rd is anyway. For most of us, that's Tom McCarthy. You might even get a loop score out of an Angus Clark or a Zach Johnson playing Richmond. Both of those Essendon boys playing Richmond on Saturday night. You might be comfortable with that, and then just go with a Richards or one of those others in red next week because it's going to cost you a bit less. So that's just something to think about. Probably less important if you're using your last trade like me, because it's only a matter of, do I want to wait till one of those are affordable, or do I trust someone that I can afford now? Versus if you've got 3 or 4 trades, it might be a big difference to save a bit of cash and go Ed Richards for 20,000 less than you pay this week.
You bring up a really good point, because the other guy that you did miss from the no cash side of this, or I think he fits in the no cash side of it, is Tom Liberatore. Liber played a ripping game last week, but the only reason I wouldn't buy him in your shoes is purely because he is such a risk of injury that he could, if he gets a bad knock to the head, he can be written off for the year, not for the week. So he is anyone that is an injury risk and you're using your last trade, beware that you are going to have to hold that player till the end of the year. So you probably want somebody a little more durable. Is probably more what I'm looking for, which is always hard. It's hard to pick. You can get the unexplained injuries, but if somebody's known for having a niggle or having a rest, if I had the choice of picking up Bailey Smith if he was a midfield only, I'd be passing on him only because Geelong are likely to rest him probably between now and the back end of the year again. Give him a chance.
I agree. And I think it's a really good shout. I think Libba's 538K because I can't afford him. And I've got 6K in the bank, so that tells me that he must be somewhere in the 538 range because I'm about 1,000 short or 1,500 short. But I wouldn't have went there anyway. So all right, let's give us one name from each 50K and 100K column, Broads. If you were shopping, which in those columns would you buy?
I would be taking Nasai Wanganeen-Malira if I had all the money to spend. If you don't own him, that man is just absolutely elite. Tom Green, if you want a pod, though. Tom Green is an elite pod. And the suitcase is quite a nice option, too, if you really want something pretty left of field there.
Love it.
In the 50K range, I would probably go with Ed Richards. And his break-even's 176K. 176, and he's meant to drop about 30K. If you can get him down, even you, Hurls, if you got the cover, mate, I'd wait for him. He's a great option. His run home's glorious.
Yeah, I certainly won't be making a trade until I've seen his score, and the maths will tell me whether I'm going to be able to get him or not, because I think it's going to be 2 weeks away anyway. I don't think he's going to drop under 537 in this 1 week, unless he gets if he gets a 60 or a 70, he will. So that's definitely an option if he does that. But then I'll probably make my decision after I see what happens. Like if he looks like he's not going to get down to my 537, which is my budget, I'll pull the trigger on somebody else. But if he does look like he might get there, that might force my hand to just
pretty well. 100 your number for that, mate. He's projected a 98 and he's projected to drop 34K, which will get him down to 534K. So if he gets 100 there or thereabouts, that's your number. If you can get him for under 550, this is an elite guy that's not going to get the tag because Bont typically will get that tag, and you're going to pick up a lovely guy to watch as well. If nothing else, you want to enjoy the back end of the year, that's him.
Yep. And it'll be interesting to be all in. I'll have Bont, Kennedy, Richards. So I'll have their whole midfield except for Libba running around, Darcy up forward. I'll be cheering for the Bulldogs for the first time in my life, which is not something I choose to do very often. So it'll be interesting. The things we do for SuperCoach.
Exactly.
All right, let's move into our buys. So we just come up with 5 for each of these categories. So we didn't want to necessarily overcook this, but what I thought we would do for the people at home, and I'll just fix that column up so that it doesn't hurt the people with OCD's eyes. These are 5 you could consider buying. For some, we've already spoken a little bit about them, but I thought I'd add a little bit more data here, which includes their percent ownership and what does their run home look like. So we've got a few people on there, and the first name off the top people will probably be looking at that going, what? Caleb Sarong, he just got tagged. He played his worst game in the history of his life. He had one clearance on the weekend. Why the hell are you two recommending Caleb Sarong? What do we say to that, Broads?
He's an elite midfielder. You can't, like, this guy's had on record a shocking year, and he's averaged 106.5. Like, if that's a shocking year for him, that's elite. And he and Brayshaw have proven that both of them can't go well together at the same time. And last year it was Sarong had the first half of the year, and he had the second half of the year. And now it's gone the other way around. Andrew's had a wonderful start to the year, and he does tend to break the game. Like, Andrew Brayshaw gives him a lot of run and carry, but Sarong can just as easily score, and he can get off the chain. He doesn't have a notable tag for the back end of the year. He's still got West Coast coming up as well. He has a great run.
Yeah, and I think, look, we often look back in SuperCoach, don't we? And so we go, oh, we're not gonna pick this bloke because he just got a crappy score. But you're not paying for last week's score. You're paying for what you think he might do over the next couple of weeks. 568K Caleb Sarong, and again, one of those guys with a big break even. So if you're not buying this week and you're waiting till next week or the week after, he's even cheaper again. These are the kind of picks that you could make or break your season. 28% owned is not massive, so you're going to have a good little pod there. Not a traditional pod like some of the next three, but definitely someone who you might have unique in your head-to-head matchups. The next bloke, I think, is going to be a lot more than 3% owned when we get to the games on the weekend. I think Errol Goulden, we all know why he's 3% owned. He's been back now for 2 weeks. He's elite. He's probably the most unique wingman the game offers. So he plays wing and then goes into the centre, bounces occasionally, and even when he's wing, he runs all over the ground. He doesn't get stuck to one dead side. Mount the case here as to why he should be someone's buy-in this week, Broads.
He's probably still going to be a pod for that 3% ownership. They're guys that are, shooting for the stars. They are probably guys that are outside top 10%. I'd have to check his ownership in top 10, top 5, and top 1%. But a lot of guys are probably having to throw out the sticks with him from outside there, using him as a pod, but he's probably still quite unique in that top echelon. So if you want someone that's proven to be good, you can do that and make that change and go to him.
Yeah. So I think that's true. I think, imagine having Goulden as your pod. And I looked today because someone asked me today, didn't Goulden suck a bit last year? Like they were a bit reluctant to jump on. I had a look at some of his scores last year, and yeah, it wasn't sort of the Bontempelli type scores, but his floor was surprisingly okay. Like most of his bad games were still 80s and 90s, and I was a bit surprised by that. I thought he might have had a bit more of a roller coaster feel about him, but late in the year in particular, he had some ceiling scores, but a lot of scores in that sort of 80s and 90s when he didn't go so well. So if that's what you're buying into at this time of year, I think that's gold. Like if your floor's good and your ceiling's high, that's exactly what you would want in your last couple of buy-ins.
Yeah, for sure. I owned him last year, and it was a bit of a roller coaster for sure, but he's just so solid.
Yeah, and look at that bloody draw. I mean, first final, if you get to the finals against Essendon, I don't think we got someone that can remotely run with him. Brisbane might try to put some work into him, and so might Geelong. But if you happen to get through to your grand final, you're coming up against West Coast then for the last game. So, that bookend of Essendon and West Coast in your first final and your grand final, that looks pretty juicy to me. We have spoken a lot about this next bloke, and your numbers pod, we did a deep dive into him. Give us just the snapshot of why Tom Green is such a good buy for those out there looking in that kind of price range.
He found consistency. Pretty much everybody owned him last year, and everybody remembers the 160s, 60s that he'd give you. He'd give you 160 one week and he'd give you a 60 the next. He has removed that 60 out of his game. And he's brought his ceiling down to like a 140, but he's brought his floor up to like an 80, 90 floor, which has made him so incredibly consistent now. That's why you can go to him. He's just racking up possessions for the fun of it and keeping his floor high, which is what you want to have in a primo.
Yeah. And he's almost that one midfielder that's just not taggable, isn't he? I mean, he's the ball winner. Yeah. So I think he's a good shout. We've spoken a little bit about Jezza Cameron. I think if you buy him, you're buying him for the draw, and you're buying him for ultra spikes. And I think just one thing to call out with the Jezza Cameron type pick, and this doesn't only apply to him, obviously, but anyone who you're thinking about buying at this time of year, if this is the first time we're going to have flex for the run home. And so I think Jezza Cameron becomes viable because he's got a couple of things in his favour. Got a great draw, low ownership. Traditional SC players will be scared off from key forwards, so he'll stay a bit pottish. And if he does have his 60 or his 30 game, because he can throw a real stinker, then you're most likely, if your team is set up well enough, you're most likely not going to have to carry that score anyway. So I think that's the reason that this year that kind of buy is a shout. Like in previous years, I would have been extremely reluctant to be telling anyone to get onto a Jezza Cameron type. But I think with that flex, especially if you've got 23 primos, if you've got 22 and McCarthy, maybe that's a bit different. But if you've got 23 and you're buying into a Jezza Cameron, I think the 20 drops out and the 160 counts. That's beautiful, right?
Yeah, exactly. The other part I'd also watch out for is make sure both Shannon Neal and hopefully Ollie Henry stay around as well, because they're the bigger bodies. So most of these, teams that he's going to play have a one big body at least to defend against him, but they do tend to fall off after they get to that second and third defender. So like Richmond, for example, they're going to have Noah Bolter, but who's the next man up really? Like Ben Miller, he's going to drag Ben Miller all over the ground. Ben Miller's not going to be able to keep up with him. They're a very young side there. Sydney are in the same boat. They don't really have that big key defender that can play with him. Essendon, like Ridley, and then you hope Zach Reed's back. Actually, he's out for the year, isn't he?
Zach Reed, he's done. He's done.
Yeah.
They've sent him for surgery. So we'll have, who will we play on him? Ridley, maybe. He's a bit more mobile than Laverty. We're not putting Laverty to him, surely. Or the other option, as crazy as this sounds, the poor bloke Blackiston, who's a ruckman playing key defence for us, he might have to play on him. So, but I think Ridley probably, assuming he gets through the next 4 weeks, that's no guarantee for Riddles. But if he gets through, I think he might be the one that at least runs around the ground with him a bit.
Exactly, and Radical has gone down at Port as well. So they're just a lot of these teams are going to be thin in that tall defender stock. So Jezza can have a field day. So it's just something to be mindful of there. But he's
something we'll talk about on tomorrow night's preview show. But interestingly, when they interviewed Whitfield tonight, they spoke about potentially Connor Iden doing a job on Cameron this week, which I thought was a strange kind of selection there. But watch your space. I would have thought it would be straight to Buckley, but Iden's name was raised, so maybe they might try something a bit different for Jezza. Actually, it might have been even Toby Green who mentioned that on 360 tonight. So anyway,
interesting.
And then the last one we've spoken about a lot. So Jack McRae, I think he's got the best role. He's not a pod. He's 41%, which is still not huge, but it's getting up there. I love the draw, especially the finals draw. If you are safe in the 8, North, Richmond, Essendon, and GWS, what a beautiful run home for someone that you're bringing into your team. And as you mentioned before, adds the flexibility with the forward mid mix, which might become really critical for us. If you think about someone going down in your team, having too many mid-onlys might end up costing you. So I think that could be another attractive play with the Jack McRae pick.
Exactly. Like a few people brought in Alex Taru, the Flying Viking, last weekend. He's got defender status, and if you've got a Bo Allen or any real defender mid-loop, if you've got Jack McRae in your midfield, you can actually loop those three together, even with no trades. SuperCoach has allowed you to do that this year. They can actually trade all three, substitute all three together, and you can actually move it around to cover off that forward injury. If you want to run Bo Allen, you can rotate that way. So having a forward in your mid is really good. I've got Sinclair in my midfield at the moment, which is handy because I can cover back to defense, but I don't have a forward cover right now.
It's the one thing I've got right this year. I've got a lot of DPP, so my team's really flexible. So even if I was to get a couple of injuries, I've got, at the moment, I think I've got 2 defender mids playing midfield and one in flex. And I've got Petrarca playing in the midfield as well, who's got the forward, and 5 of my 6 forwards on field also mid forward. So at least I've got a little bit of flexibility and the ability to cover with any line if someone does go down, but I might bloody need it because I'm out of trade. So that's the downside.
Lovely planning, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. We've mentioned our man Lockie Whitfield a few times, and we always give our great mate a bit of a plug when we do talk about Lockie Whitfield. So we'll give our sponsor Ryan Hammond from Astute Newstead a bit of a plug. Really timely. That anyone out there thinking about home loans or personal loans or anything like that, give Ryan a shout out. Mention Insight. He'll do it for you for free. With rates not coming down as we might have expected today, every expert under the sun thought rates will be dropping today, and it didn't happen. The Reserve Bank kept the cash rate at 3.85. So go to Ryan if you need to do some refinancing. If you were waiting for that interest rate to drop and it didn't happen, he can help you out. So we'll give our man a plug there. Let's get into the holds. What's that?
Trees in the chat.
Yeah. Let's look at our holds, and we're going to talk about the top 3, which are pretty traditional, and then I've put a couple in there that are a little bit different because I want to talk about a specific point when it comes to Sheldrick and McCarthy, because we got a few questions in our Patreon chat this week. I thought it would be good to address. What do you do if you got like these two as your 22nd and 23rd? So we'll talk about them in a minute, but let's go first of all. Lockie Neal's another one that owners got sick of and jumped off, and I was surprised to see today that his percent ownership is down to 24%. What are we doing with him? We're saying hold. Why are you recommending we hold fire on a player like Lockie Neal?
I think he's not. The biggest reason is he doesn't have a lot of cash on his head. If Lockie Neal was a 570k guy at the moment, he could definitely make his way to the sell side of it. But at 518, you're actually spending too much cash to move him on to anybody that's reasonable at that point. Yep. And he's averaged 104 in the year. He's put that up. He's got Gold Coast in the run home. He historically scores really well against. He's really only got a Sydney game for a trade, like for a tag. Yep. Other than that, most of the other guys aren't really probably going to put too much work on him. So I'd be pretty comfortable running Neal home. I've got him running home, and I'll probably even put the vice on him over the Gold Coast game, to be honest, because he just has a field day there.
Yeah, it's a good call. I mean, our review show is going to. There were a few people joking with us tonight about how we're going to keep this show to an hour because the two of us could chat all day. When we do our review show and we start to talk about lessons learned and stuff, I think we'll need to have a 6-hour podcast or something like that. Maybe we'll do. Remember those? Yeah, you remember those old movie marathons where you used to go and watch movies for like 3 movies back to back or something? Maybe our review show will be something like that. But yeah, if I look, I mean, I spoke about Merritt. I traded him out. I had Lockie Neal and traded him out. I've traded out so many blokes that I didn't need to. No wonder I'm out of trades. It's like it's been a very poor year from me from that point of view. I think the cash shortage just made me do some really stupid things, and using primos to buy other primos that were cheaper and more value to finish my team has really hurt me now with no trades left. But yeah, I agree. Lockie Neal, if you got him, I'd hold him for sure. I think he could be a bit of a unique on the way home at 24%. Jack Sinclair, another one who owners are probably frustrated with. Why is he not in the sell? Because this one, people would be tearing their hair out, I reckon.
Again, I'm going to put him in the same bucket as Lockie Neal. There is not enough cash on his head to justify the money out. If you would want to move him on to somebody else, you're going to have to be moving somebody else that's got cash. No one at 497 yet is interesting me. If you give it 2 more weeks and Sinclair stays the same point and you've got the trades, you've got 3s or 4s, you could move him over to Whitfield. There's an option there. But at least for the moment, he is going to stay a hold. From what I understand, his role hasn't changed a great deal. He's just had a poor few weeks. If you look back to round 6 to 8, he did 70, 99, and 83. He's done it before. He's now done 65, 89, 72. And then after that, he went 124, 131, 143, 113. Give him some time. Plus, his finals run is just juicy as all crap. He's got North, Richmond, Essendon, and GWS, and he's not going to get the I say not. He's unlikely to get the tag from Snooze come round 24. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually goes to Nas.
Yeah, I think Nas is the one they're going to try to clamp. Whether they can or not is another story.
That work right.
Yeah, but he runs too much. He's just a gut runner. But I think Sinclair, I haven't seen. I know I went to the game against Freo. They didn't put any time into him. It was just a poor game. So I don't know if it's because St Kilda, and it'd be interesting because we get fixated in our minds about the style of certain teams and how St Kilda, historically use their back flankers, and it's been all Nas and Sinclair. I don't know. Maybe the last 2 weeks, because NASA's pushed up and spent a little bit more time through the middle, maybe that's meant that they haven't been as sideways and backwards potentially, and maybe that's hurting Sinclair a bit more than anyone else because he's not the one on the end of the chains. Normally, he's the ones that are getting the 2 and 3 disposals, chipping across, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just had a bit of a quick squeeze into the numbers. His marks are what's down. Tackles are down slightly, and he's down a few kicks. He's not down anything major, though. He's not down an unrecoverable amount. It's not like he's kicked a handball ratio's gone to crap or anything like that would make me be greatly concerned. He has lost some meters gained, but he's also had some good games where he's put up 300 and 400 meters gained, which is what he's doing at the moment. So there's nothing here that's alerting.
That's making me feel a bit better about having him in my team. So that's good. Thank you, Broads. And again, the Saints draw. The Saints draw is the one, right? Like you're loving the look of that. If he gets through the next 2 weeks, he's going, Sydney, Geelong, but then you get into Melbourne, North, Richmond, Essendon, 4 in a row there that you're going to be really, really wanting these Saints players in your team.
Yeah, remember this. Everyone needs to remember this is the Jack Sinclair that put 162 on Richmond earlier in the year. He's put 143 on Gold Coast earlier in the year. Again, teams that notably that don't put work into them. Yep. He can do this sort of stuff. Geelong 145, Carlton 124. This is all this year too. He can just take it.
Absolutely. Maxi Gawn, another one that a lot of people sold him. I was absolutely shocked when I saw 31% owned. I'm comfortable that we've got him in hold at the moment because if you own him, you're going to put him in hold. The other thing is, though, he becomes a buy in the next few weeks for me. Like, he gets through this week after he plays Tristan Sherry. He's got a huge break even. He becomes a buy from next week. He's got Carlton, St Kilda, West Coast, Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn, Collingwood for the run home. I think teams that have held or that buy Max Gawn back have a distinct advantage for the run home. I saw a few people saying this week, sell Max Gawn for a different ruckman. I'm not in that camp at all. I'm a massive hold Maxi guy, and I'm going to even say buy him if you don't own him, but not this week against Sherry. Wait till round 19 for the buy.
See, with Sherry, this is the thing I really like about Max even this week, and I own both Max and Tristan. So running them both this week is Max likes to get involved as a midfielder and actually get the handball chains and get the ball moving a bit. And Tristan Sherry loves a tackle. Now, Max Gawn, as long as he doesn't get done for holding the ball, there's no penalty for him getting tackled. He doesn't lose points for that, and Tristan gains them. And if Max gets the ball and handballs it, there's points there. We really win out of these two wanting to be midfielders.
I think you're big on this, and it's been a really interesting one to listen to you talk over the last couple of weeks about this, thinking about your players in combos. I think it's a really good way to think. Like, for example, like if you've got, and a lot of us do have Gawn and Sherry. So this is a bit of a different scenario to the one you spoke about last week, because last week you spoke about Nas and Sinclair and the fact that they still got 220 points between them. So you don't really care whether it's Nas 150 and Sinclair 80 or whether it's 110 each. You're still getting your 220. This is similar, but a little different because it's your two ruckmen, even though they're on different teams. If they're going to get 110 each, who cares if it's 140 and 180 or if it's 110 each or whatever it is? You're still getting the points, right? So you just want no freeze against. That's the key for this matchup. You don't want the holding the balls. You want Sherry to tackle Gawn 15 times and be 15 ball ups.
And even then, even if he tackles him, you lose 4-1 and you gain 4 to the other. It's a net 0. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter in the end anyway. And even then, Tristan gets the tackle. So
Yeah.
it's a real win here anyway. Like everybody's
I-
losing their mind, going 2 good rucks. It's going to be crap. I think we all need to look back at. I vividly remember the Fife Dangerfield game when Danger was at the Crows, and they basically rocked up, shook hands, and went, "I'll see you on the other side, fellas." Just because you have 2 elite players playing against each other, it does not mean it's going to be bad. They can play just fabulous. And again, we don't actually care about the AFL side of this. This is going to be a really, really interesting ruck duel. But we don't actually care about it if you're playing for SuperCoach points. You care about them doing point scoring items. And they will both do it this week.
Agree. Just some instant feedback here. The boss has jumped in saying we're doing a great job. And I have to show this one because this is just gold. Go Kizza, quick, make it look like you're doing something. I think you've come across the 2 blokes who do this in our day jobs and make it look like we're doing something. So we're experts at this part. That bit we've got under control, bro. So
I'm in sales, so it's pretty standard for me to just talk and make it look like I'm busy.
That's it. And the last 2 that I want to talk about, these might be a little strange because one of them is people will be looking at this going, why are you putting Tom McCarthy on here? Of course he's a hold. This guy's our 23rd primo. He's a gun. He's averaging 105. You wasted the ink to put that up there. But I wanted to put that up there because I wanted to talk about these 2 together, Angus Sheldrick and Tom McCarthy. Or even if you've got a different bloke to Sheldrick, if you played the 21 primos plus a cashed up rookie plus McCarthy kind of game, and that's how you are sitting at the moment. You left 4 or 5 trades in the bank. We had a few questions this week about what do I do here if Sheldrick is the perfect example. He was getting 85s, 90s. He's now dropped his CBAs the last 2 weeks to, I think, 30-something%, where it was at 60-something%. So the role isn't as good as it was. His cash has gone to 376. So in our heads, we think time to go. It's beautiful. His break even's up at 100. We could sell him for 376. But I wanted to just talk about this in conjunction with McCarthy, because what I would suggest to people and why I put this on the whole page is if you are playing for league finals now, I wouldn't sell Sheldrick this week. And I'll explain why. And you can tell me if you agree, disagree, Broads. I would look at these 2 as a package. At the moment, they're worth 580,000. If you wait a few weeks, yes, Sheldrick might lose a couple of bucks because he's got a break even of 105, but you know that he's got a floor of about a 65 or a 70. That's what he's getting, even with these 35% CBAs. As long as he holds his role in the Swans team and gets his 65s, it gives you that safe floor in case one of your primos gets concussed and scores a 5 or something like that. So I think that's his role then in your team. And it gives you another maybe 2 weeks before finals to look at what McCarthy's doing. Because if I knew McCarthy was safe at 95 plus, I'd sell Sheldrick this week. I wouldn't worry about it. And I'd just say, all right, well, McCarthy's safe. But I just want to, because he's a rookie, because he plays for the shittest team in the comp, because he's only been there for 3 weeks, personally, I'd love, if I had this scenario, to wait till round 20 before I pulled the trigger and then did something about this with more information about what McCarthy's output looks like. What are your thoughts on that kind of play?
It probably sounds a bit selfish for me. I'd love nothing more than round 21 to roll around. Tom McCarthy gets sent back to the twos because there's too much media pressure, and they're not running the guys they drafted. They're running some mid-season draft guy that come from the sticks, and they send him back there. And so many guys are forced to run 22, and I've got the trades to cover it. So I think everybody beware. If you're wanting to use 2 trades at this point, you'd want to have 5, 6 trades. But even if Sheldrick goes down 20 grand, Tom McCarthy's going to go up 80 this week.
Yeah.
So just keep running him. Get McCarthy and Sheldrick will be worth 750 grand at some point, and you can pick up anybody that you want at that point. Just see what's out there. And holding trades to the closer you can to the back end of the year. Like I was chatting to some mates earlier today about it. I got caught up last year. I didn't get caught up with the Rankin half of it, but I did get caught up in the Dan Houston half of it. Of Dan Houston getting suspended for 4 weeks over a bump that just happened in the game. And Sheasel was out the same week too. So I ran 2 donuts in the final round of the year. It's having those come finals are just so overpowered.
Yeah. And the second half of that you're talking about is when you come to make the decision on Sheldrick versus McCarthy, and do you trade them both for 700 for somebody that's 600 and then a 99K rookie, you've got the closer to the end kind of data as well. We might be talking about a couple of different hot blokes in 3 weeks' time that have just caught fire that you might want to jump on that no one else can, that you can do that. So I think if I was playing for leagues, I would definitely wait and it'd be a hold. The only exception to this rule would be if you are in the position where you have to win the next 3 weeks to make finals, or you're sitting 1,000th overall and you're going for overall rank and you want to jump to 400th, you're trying to, then Sheldrick's not probably helping you. So if you are aggressive and you are okay to be aggressive, then throw what we've just said out the window a little bit. I think that's okay to sell him then. But if you're playing for leagues, you're in your 8, you're better off just waiting until you can package these up and buy the best bloke possible for finals, I think.
Exactly. And the other part is you are then only buying on a 4-week block as well. Right now you're buying on a 7-week block. So you might get the big, you might get the poor. If you're buying on just a purely 3 or 4 week block, you can buy somebody that has 3 great matchups or 3 out of 4 great matchups, not 4 out of 7. You're just buying the best percentage you can.
Absolutely. Just another little shout out to another sponsor who's just come on board. So Stromcrete, he's doing some great stuff around, I think Bendigo region, but does all Victoria. So if you're looking to do some paving around your pool or anything like that, give Strommy a bell. Reach out to Horse or myself or Flanders. We can get you in contact. He's a great bloke. He's been in the chats, loves a punt, loves a drink, loves the Bombers. So he's a good guy. We're building a little Bombers cult, I think, at IFS. So good to see one of our sponsors get on board that's also a member of our little Bombers family.
I was going to say after round 24 game is going to be an absolute lovely time for me and Pete. I should give a shout out to Pete being the only other Gold Coast Suns fan I seem to know, apparently. But he's in the chat as well versus what feels like 800 Bombers guys. So
yeah. It's something we have to do these days because it's been so harrowing for 20 years for us Bombers fans. We have to find our little pack and we have to stay together so that when we start getting smashed, it's easier to have a shoulder to cry on. But anyway, let's get into the sells. Now, a couple of little strategic ones here. The first one's obvious. We won't talk about him. We gave you a whole list of people to potentially jump to, but Jai Caldwell is the obvious. He's already down to 7.7%. It'll be down even lower this week. The only exception to the rule of selling Jai Caldwell this week is if you want to wait till next week because the bloke you want is dropping in price. Matty Roberts, I think, is also pretty obvious, bro. So role change, sub last week. Is there any world where you keep Matty Roberts?
No, I got rid of him last week. I was one who actually shouted out when he got the wing role, trade him, and then didn't trade him. I was hoping he'd at least stay reasonable for the next week, and he wasn't that good. But I had to get rid of him last week. His break-even was through the roof, but you had to get rid of him. Now he's sub. He's doing what he did last year. So I would say there could still be a world where you jump on him, bottom end if they choose to do that, because they did that last year with him. I remember he made everybody a bucket load of cash, then dropped all his cash, and then made it all again. So
and then he got the rollback,
correct. But you'd have to drop him based on what the current indications are. So 411, I don't care what money he's got on his head. His break even will be through the nose. Sell.
And we might be back talking about him the start of next year when we look at our starting teams, if it looks like he's got a backline seagull roll again. But let's cross that bridge if we get to it.
We can't. I own Jaden Short. I own Jaden Short to start the year, and he was a better own than Matt Roberts.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about these next three. So what we wanted to do for the last three on this list, we've been banging on for the best part of 50 minutes already about the value of trade. So we're not saying if you've got these three blokes, and I own all three. I'm not sure, Broads, if you've got all three of the next guys, Sheasel, Daniel,
just
and
two of them.
Track. So you've got two of the three.
Yeah.
We're not saying go and sell them this week. What we're saying here is these are the ones that are highly owned. So you got 55%, 58%, 34%. So they're in a lot of teams. And if you have the trades up your sleeve and you want to be aggressive and you want to anti-pod someone, these are the ones we think are worth having a look at. So, for example, we've spoken earlier about our man Lockie Whitfield being a great buy. You can go Harry Sheasel to Lockie Whitfield for, I think it's 18 grand. Like that is a great trade if you've got 5-6 trades in the bank, because you've got to now start thinking about using your trades as leverage. So you don't want to give them all away, because if injuries hit, you're going to be up the creek without a paddle like people like me. So you don't want to do that. But if you've got 5 or 6, if you're out there, some miracle will happen and you've got that many, you could use 1 or 2 strategically, something like a Sheasel to a Whitfield. What a really good antipod to have. Sheasel's shown in the last month in this role that the ceiling isn't there. He's still going okay. He's still getting the ball when he goes centre bounce, but I don't think he's got the ceiling he had early in the year. I mean, his average for the year is only a flat 100. So he's someone that you really could antipod here for a Lockie Whitfield, who's a seagull, who might give you an extra 20 points a week. What are you thinking about these kind of guys, bros? Are you planning on doing any of these kind of sneaky trades, we'll call them?
Sheasel, yes, he is not on the block this week, but if I can, I'm actually going to hold out probably until as late as I can on Whitfield, and I'll do that over. I've got 3 trades, so I still have a few up the sleeve here to do that, and I'm running 22 on McCarthy. The other part is looking at these numbers. If we look at Sheasel's ownership in the top 5%, he's 81% owned. So most people are looking top 5%, that's the top 10K roughly. Caleb Daniels 68%, and Christian Petrarca is the highest of all of them at 83%. So this is where these guys are at. They're so highly owned. 2/3 of people minimum own them. In most cases, over 80%.
I was going to say that's a good shout, because all I've done here is I've just put the percentage ownership overall, but Petrarca is actually really interesting, because when you go to the pointy end of the competition, it's now 68%, not 34%. So these are guys I think are real good antipods for your run home. Like Petrarca, he's getting his disposals. He's just not getting the score. He's got the role. He's just not scoring in it. So I think he's one you could absolutely go head to head with if you were looking at antipodding someone. And again, we'll talk about this probably when we think strategy for next year and lessons and all of that. The value of trades at this time of year, we all talk about injury trades. None of us talk about having trades for strategy. And I think, geez, it would be really good to have 2 or 3 up your sleeve right now, above and beyond your 2 or 3 injury trades, to be able to pull the trigger on these 3 blokes, to strategically handpick who you want in these little D6, F6 spots that could go against somebody else. So I think that's something we should be thinking about maybe more for next year, because I think the horse is bolted for this year. But if you are in a luxurious position, it's a good play.
Yeah. Something that I'll probably get roasted for by both you guys and the chat for this, but Christian Petrarca looked less interested in playing football than Pickles. I watched him on the weekend, and he did not want to be there. The ball was getting kicked around, and he was moseying around. At least Pickles seen the ball and went, I'm at least going to run at it. I don't know if I want to put my head over it, but I'll run towards it at least.
You're not getting roasted by me. I'm with you. I said this on the review show on Sunday. I put about 3 or 4 of these blokes in the same bucket now that I just don't want to own, or I don't want to watch. And it's Pickles, it's Petrarca. They look disinterested. I'm really not interested in them, but I would love to be able to move track on. And maybe next year we can reevaluate if he gets a trade and he looks interested again or something like that. But just for now, he just doesn't look interested. I tend to agree with you. So that's going to do us for our buy holds and sell for this week, bros. What we might do, you reckon we'll get into some questions?
I love question time, mate.
Let's do some questions if I can find the...
It's question time. Let's answer your questions for the week ahead.
All right, so now this will test me. So far, so good. I think hosting's been pretty easy, except for now the technical bits that I need to do. So let's see how we go putting some of these on the screen. We'll start up now, mate. IJ, the nerds are back. I think we've been okay tonight, Broads, haven't we? We haven't been too nerdy.
We've been pretty good. We've been pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I did get asked today by Pete on Twitter if I'm still available to do tax returns after we saw Jaden Popowski's beautiful work on the magic numbers and the scaling and all that. My goodness, great! I want to do this. Don't want to do this a disservice. Jaden does an amazing job, and so when we're talking nerds, we're having a bit of fun. But my goodness, the stuff that is in the article, if you haven't seen it yet, go find Jaden Popowski on Twitter. Have a look at the article he put together today. It explains some of the scaling that happens in SuperCoach, and he's now been able to crack the formula so that his formulas and his numbers get to within like 2% error only, which is ridiculous. So Jaden, you're a genius, mate. I laugh when someone calls me a nerd because I can't even use Excel formulas, let alone what you were doing in some of that article.
It's an elite work by him, and I will give a shout out to him. There's been plenty of his info that I've used, and what that man does a power of work for the community that a lot of us don't see, that creates an understanding. I know we all sit here and we go, this player gets points for doing nothing and he's hanging out on the bench. Why is he getting points? He explains it beautifully in there. Even if you're not a numbers person and you just want to understand how scaling works, because that's what his latest post is. He did one about 2 years ago for how scoring works, which is definitely worth a read. But that scaling one will explain why people get points and lose points sitting on a bench late in games, in high-scoring games and low-scoring games, blowouts like games.
And that was the gist of it. If you're not a mathematician, don't worry about the formulas and the algorithms and all the fun stuff that was in there. The crux of it was, how do we scale when the score's close versus how do we scale when the score's blowouts and these kinds of things. And so he's put a bit of work into that, which is bloody unbelievable. Hey, lads, 2 hours incoming. We promise, Ricky, we're not going 2 hours. We're under strict instructions. We're going to beat the hour that we were asked, but we're not going to get to 2, I promise.
57 minutes of counting. We're good.
That's it. Last trade for IJ, Caldwell to McRae. I love it. Love it, IJ. Yep. That would be my number one pick if I didn't have McRae. I said that earlier. I am not going to talk anyone out of that pick. What do we got here from Nathan? G'day, lads. Ranked 30 overall. Team name Straight No Chaser. Thinking Pod VC Nando's to make up some ground. Nathan, first of all, bloody awesome. 30 overall. Keep going, mate. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I have the VC on Nando's at the moment. So how pottish is it if I've got it? But I think a lot of people are going to go Dacos. A lot of people are going to go Merritt. You're the Suns man. Broads, is Nando's a good shout?
Nando's could be a good shout. He does love a bit of people's first. I'm just actually I've done a bit of stat checking here, and I can confirm, Straight No Chaser is 30th overall, and I'm having a bit of a squiz at the team at the moment, and I would say Nando's probably does look like the option I would be going. Zach Butters could be another. He's going to play the last game. I would probably be more inclined if I was him to be running, Nando's into Butters. That'd be the way I'd go.
I think that's a good, because you got your safe floor, your safe score there with Butters. I think that gives you the chance to go with whoever you think your biggest scorer is going to be. And we know that the Pies don't tag. We know Nando's loves people's first. So I think that's as good a shout as any anyway. So good luck, Nathan, 30th. I was there this time last year. It gets a bit nerve-wracking and almost energy-consuming. We think about SuperCoach a lot anyway, but when you're up there as well, you do think about it way too much. So hopefully you're getting a bit of time away from SuperCoach too, mate, but you can come home with a run. Let's have a look. What else have we got here? Kizza, Tom McCarthy will help you out with your finances. I think he's helped us out already with the SuperCoach finances, and that's now a reference. I think we're going to move our plug for Ryan away from Lockie Whitfield to the West Coast games with Tom McCarthy. I think that might be the call.
I'm not sure who Ryan looks more like, whether it be Lockie Whitfield with a mustache or whether it be Tom McCarthy. But I think you put them together and you just got triplets.
Can Lockie Whitfield grow a mustache? I don't know if he can. He might be a bit like our man Deadly.
He is not going to take that well either.
Sorry, Deadly. I had to when you fill in the host shoes. It's part of the contract. They said you have to put in at least one dig at Deadly for the show. So that's my one. I'll leave it alone from now on. But Blue Ballers, g'day mate. Looking like a wet and windy one in Melbourne on Sunday. Lots of stoppages. Scares me off. So who's the Sunday game that we might be referring to here? Is that
that is Sherry? Oh, that is North End Melbourne.
Oh, a lot of stoppages is that's even better. That's what we want.
Well, he's scared him off McKercher.
Oh, so sorry, I've missed.
Yeah, that's right.
I've missed the.
That's
I
right.
missed the
Scared
end
me
of
off. Scared me off Kirk. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be too scared of that. Like we're probably going to have a bit of stoppage going on, being wet, being windy. But Kirch has proven that his things in meters gained. We've done a fair bit of work in the Patreon with it, but meters gained is his thing. They're going to try get it out, get it into hands, and just try and move a ball forward. If he clears 40 plus meters to a contest, champion data and probably not their brightest hour, consider that an effective kick. So it does count well. I wouldn't be scared off. If you happily own though.
Yeah, I agree. I think let's hope he does kick the thing long rather than try to go for some dainty little kicks and gets tied up and stuff like that. Ricky, no Touk in the list. We couldn't include anyone. Touk's a good shout. I think Touk can fit comfortably in either the buy or the hold list or the Caldwell replacement list. I wouldn't talk anyone out of Touk. What do you reckon, bros?
I'm a Gold Coast supporter. I own one John Noble, and that's enough risk for me. I like watching my own team without the stress of SuperCoach. I remember I was complaining in the chat this week about the stress of owning John Noble and having to care about my team for SuperCoach. But Touk is just if he's not getting if he's not getting midfield, he's just rotating forward and kicking goals. If he's getting midfield, he'll take that too. He's just finding it somewhere. So great safe option.
Do you think this is maybe more for the preview show tomorrow night? But do you think there's a chance he runs with Nick tomorrow on Friday night with Nick Dacos?
Nope. No. Touk is moved past those years, and the other part is he will just outrun him. And to be fair, we probably don't have somebody that can run enough with him. To be honest.
Yeah, it's probably one of those games where you're pretty happy if you're an owner of any of the midfielders in that game, because there's probably going to be a lot of trust your own system. Let's play the way we want to play and see what happens.
Just the only thing for anybody VCing Nick or Nando's, like I'll be VCing Nick, there is only a certain amount of points to go around, and with the midfielders of both teams taking the PI 55. There's only so many points that can go around to those guys. So, not everybody can score a 140. And if nobody's manning up and there's 35 touches going every which way, only so many people can score points. That's still backing Nick.
Absolutely. Corey's doing a great job this year. Keep it going, Corey. Noble and Myers are around Sinclair's price. Yeah. Look, at this stage of the year, it becomes personal preference. And I put a little bit of a comment out today in our Patreon, and everyone knows that this is my last trade, and I'm I'll weigh it up this week about which of the blokes I'm going to bring in to cover Caldwell for my last trade. But to be completely honest, I think we overanalyze, this, for example, should I go Noble? Should I go Myers? Should I go Sinclair? Like, I don't think there's that big a discrepancy in these kind of guys that you should be over worried. Like, you go with whoever you prefer, each to their own. Everyone's like, you said that you're going to go, you went Noble, so you're going to avoid Suns. I'm probably going to avoid Merritt and Martin because I don't want to watch Bombers players in my SuperCoach. Everyone's got their own little preferences with these kind of moves. So I think any of those kind of blokes are worthwhile.
The other part people need to factor in is, obviously, if you're selling somebody, you need to consider the weight of a trade and what that trade's actually worth. It's worth money, And if you're selling Sinclair to go to Noble, their average the same for the year so far. They're going to average, I would without a doubt say, the same to the back end of the year. Same with Myers. They're all going to sit around the same point anyway. Noble doesn't have DPP. Myers doesn't have DPP. Sinclair does. Are you just using a trade for the sake of trading? And it's so easy for us. We get 40 trades. Like there was years gone by where we only had 30. And I think there was even less before my time.
20, 20 at the start.
Yeah, 20. Yeah. So, we get so used to the habit of 2 trades, 3 trades, 2 trades, 3 trades, week in, week out, that we now just come to an abundance of stock come the buys. It's so weird to watch a week go by and not hit the trade button. It's not worth it if you're just going sideways for the sake of going sideways.
Yeah, agree. And I think the thing is, if you're an addict like me and you just love trading, you get to 0 like I'm going to get to this week, and then they don't give you any more. So it sort of stops you pretty quick. You go cold turkey because I've got none left. So others will be experiencing exactly the same as I am. We might finish off with Kizza here. I think Horse might have sent out the bat signal for all the Essendon fans, and the more the merrier. We'll keep them coming. So that's going to do us for the questions tonight, Broads, and for the pod. First of all, thank you for joining me on my debut hosting experience. It's been a pleasure. We could talk SuperCoach for hours, so just to whack a couple of slides and it's been a bit of fun. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on X, SC_Flanders. Feel free to jump in there. Any queries, questions that didn't get jumped to on this one, or it's in anything else that pops up, feel free to hit up the DMs. I'm also the WhatsApp for Patreon, so jump in, slide me a message. Happy to chat and go from there. And Hurls, I'll reach a 5 out of 5 on Uber for a wonderful hosting experience.
Oh, beautiful. Love that, mate. Thank you. You click the stars and all of that. In the days of NPS, and you're a salesman, you'll know all about it. So you make sure you give me a 9 or a 10, because an 8 doesn't count. I'm only a passive, so make sure you click the 9 or the 10, buddy.
Sadly, no tip. Sadly, no tip on the top.
Nah, that's okay. That's okay. I'll try harder next time. But everyone out there, just a note for tomorrow night. We'll send this out in socials and all the rest. But if we can line it up, Horse is going to be at the basketball again. So if we can line it up, I'll probably host again, and we'll get our man Squiddy back for his usual preview show tomorrow night. If we can line the times up, I won't promise it yet because I haven't got confirmation. We're trying to do a short preview show between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night, if we can line all of our diaries up, because we know that State of Origin deciders on at about 8:10 or whatever it is. So what better way to spend the hour before kickoff, because we don't want to listen to those New South Wales biased wankers on Channel 9 talking absolute gibberish. Why not talk some SuperCoach? We'll do our preview, and then we'll let everyone get into the beers on the couch watching State of Origin, if we can get that happening. So look out for the socials tomorrow night. We think we'll get that happening for tomorrow night's preview show. Looking forward to that. And like we do, just to end the show, we're really big on the stigma of men's mental health here at Insight. So I wanted to just end the show like Horse normally does, with just a message for anyone out there that might be feeling like they need a chat. Our DMs here at Insight are always open. If you need to reach out to Flanders, if you want to reach out to me or Horse or Squiddy or Deadly or any of the gang, we're always available, because it's not weak to speak, and it's okay to not be okay. So we really do mean that, and our DMs are always open. But that'll do us for tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. I love to get some likes and some positive feedback. If any negative feedback's okay too, we're always here to improve. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night.